Chapter 81, He's gone too far. No way, you're having porridge. Choose between porridge with century egg and lean meat or sliced fish. I'm giving you 5 seconds. Hurry up and make your choice, Yin Shoji said assertively, not giving her a chance to throw a tantrum. Mu Xiaoxiao said helplessly, then I'll take the porridge with century egg and lean meat then, can you add something else though? For example, a strawberry cake or something, please pretty please. Yin Shoji swept a glaze across her before turning away to dial a number. Mu Xiaoxiao couldn't hear what he was saying and stood at her original spot gloomily. How long do we have to wait before the food arrives? She studied the night sky. The dark sky was studded full of dazzling stars and looked very pretty. Looking at this made her mood better, but her stomach was still growling with hunger. He replied, it shouldn't be long. Let's find somewhere to sit. Luckily, there was grass all around, so there were many places that they could sit. Mu Xiaoxiao scrunched up her face and said, are there any bugs here? Of course there are many. There are even snakes. I don't think you should sit, you're better off standing up. Yin Shoji smiled sinisterly and pretended to scare her. Humph. Mu Xiaoxiao glared at him before sitting down beside him. I'm a girl. Isn't it normal for me to be scared of bugs and stuff? However, she knew that Yin Shoji probably didn't see her as a girl. If not, he wouldn't have ridiculed her constantly or treated her with no gentleness or thoughtfulness. Luckily, they didn't have to wait long before someone came over with food. As the person was about to leave after putting their food down, Yin Shoji called to him suddenly and said, you, wait. Yes, young Master Ji. Yin Shoji's bottom lip curled. Take off your jacket and give it to me, he ordered. Ah, the person was stunned, but not daring to disobey, he took his jacket off awkwardly and handed it over. You may leave now. Yin Shoji dismissed his underling. Okay, the person left. Yin Shoji threw the jacket in his hand over to Mu Xiaoxiao, his face showing a, you're so troublesome, look. Use this as a mat to sit on, he said with mock resentment. Mu Xiaoxiao chuckled. Picking up the jacket, she spread it out on the grass and sat on it. Now, she didn't have to worry about getting bitten by bugs anymore. Opening the plastic bag, Mu Xiaoxiao could smell the fragrance of food. Her eyes lit up suddenly. It smells like fried chicken. She was extremely delighted. Rummaging through the bag, she found a paper box of fried chicken and reached out to grab it. Smack. Yin Shoji slapped her hand away. Looking at her with a severe gaze, he said, didn't I say that you're not allowed to have this? Eat your porridge. He pulled out some porridge from another bag as he said this and handed it over to her. Holding on to the porridge, Mu Xiaoxiao's face scrunched up, looking like a little dumpling. Boo-hoo, I want to eat fried chicken. He had gone too far. He didn't let her eat it but had bought it for himself. Was he trying to taunt her by making her watch as he ate it? Hurry up and eat. Didn't you say you were hungry? Yin Shoji propped up a leg and rested his hand on his knee, looking devilishly handsome in the pose. He then grabbed a piece of fried chicken to eat. Mu Xiaoxiao pursed her lips. Helpless, she could only open the lid of her container and started eating her porridge. After eating half of it, she felt a little full and put the container down. However, her eyes were glued onto the fried chicken in Yin Shoji's hand. Her mouth flooded with so much saliva that she had to swallow it. Amused, Yin Shoji looked at her. His dark, obsidian eyes glimmered deviously as he dangled the fried chicken from his hand. Wanna have some? Chapter 82, a frolicking pair. Thinking that his heart had softened, Mu Xiaoxiao's eyes lit up. Nodding vigorously like a little chick pecking at grains, she said, yes. I'm thirsty, Yin Shoji drawled. Mu Xiaoxiao quickly picked up a bottle of mineral water and uncapped it before offering it to him. Here's some water. Yin Shoji smiled and shrugged. My back is aching from carrying you for such a long time earlier. Getting up hastily, Mu Xiaoxiao massaged his shoulders from behind. Is this strength okay? After resting for a while, she had recovered. Yin Shoji slightly nodded. Borderline okay. Alright, sit back down. Mu Xiaoxiao sat back down obediently. Her bright dark eyes looked at him, brimming with anticipation, her gaze focused on the fried chicken in his hand. You can have one mouthful, he said. Mu Xiaoxiao's face fell instantly. Unwilling to accept this, she asked, just a mouthful. Yin Shoji glanced at her. How much do you want to eat then? It's already good of me to let you have a mouthful, don't push it. I want it, I want it, I want it. Mu Xiaoxiao said quickly, afraid that she would be denied even that one bite. Holding on to the fried chicken, Yin Shoji offered her the meat. As if afraid of him running off, Mu Xiaoxiao held onto his hand tightly. Opening her mouth wide, she leaned forward and took a gigantic bite out of the chicken. He was stunned. In disbelief, he asked, how can your mouth open so wide? Mu Xiaoxiao was delighted. After sitting down properly, she then took the piece of chicken out from her mouth and held it in her hands to savor it. Yin Shoji made a disgusted face. Ooh, you're so gross. You're the gross one. Who told you to not let me have it? Mu Xiaoxiao reached out with her greasy fingers, trying to wipe them on him. Don't touch me. It's dirty. Yin Shoji dodged hastily. Mu Xiaoxiao chuckled darkly. She moved towards him again, determined to touch him with her fingers. Oi! Yin Shoji shouted and tugged at her hand. The momentum caused him to pin her onto the ground. With him on top of her, they looked scandalously intimate. Ah. Yin Shoji, let me up. Mu Xiaoxiao's first thought was that bugs would get onto her. She shrieked loudly, goosebumps spreading across her skin. Hee, scared now. The pair joked around with each other. At a corner nearby, Hyuna was secretly observing them. Her reddened eyes glared at the sight as though she wanted to tear Mu Xiaoxiao into small shreds, and her lips were white from biting them. Yin Shoji only let go of Mu Xiaoxiao when his phone started ringing. After he finished the call, he said to Mu Xiaoxiao, "They're done playing," and said that they wanted to go drink. "Want to come? Or do you want me to send you home?" Mu Xiaoxiao raised her arms up quickly as if she was afraid that he would change his mind. I wanna go, she said hastily. She was worried that he would cast her away and not let her enter a bar. Yin Shoji stood up and brushed the grass off his pants. "Let's go then." Mu Xiaoxiao got up as well and scooped up the jacket. Looking at the road they came from, she said gloomily, "Are we walking back? It's so far." Just as she said that, Yin Shoji's Bugatti drove over. The driver was the one who had sent food over. Mu Xiaoxiao handed his jacket back to him. "Thanks." She smiled pleasantly. The boy was a little shocked. Blushing, he said, "No problem. It's my duty anyway." Yin Shoji had already opened the door and gotten into the car. "Hurry up and get in," he shouted to Mu Xiaoxiao. Chapter 83, Sing a song for your hubby, okay. Mu Xiaoxiao opened the car door to passenger seat. It was only after she settled in and put on her seatbelt that she remembered the boy outside. "What about him?" she asked Yin Shoji. Yin Shoji replied coolly, "He's going to walk back, of course." He then turned the ignition. The awesome sound of the engine echoed around the mountain. "Drive slowly," Mu Xiaoxiao cautioned. She still had a lingering fear of the insane speed earlier and was a little scared. Yin Shoji clicked his tongue. He was used to driving fast cars and wasn't really used to driving at such a tortoise-like speed. However, he had no choice and had to decrease the speed. "Is this okay now?" Mu Xiaoxiao nodded. "This is fine." However, the other sports cars were already long gone. Everyone else was already at the bar and had fooled around for quite a bit when they had finally arrived. "Young Master G, why are you so slow? It's so weird. Normally you're the first one to arrive." "I know, right? Did you make out with your girlfriend somewhere before coming here?" At these words, the others looked suggestively at Yin Shoji and Mu Xiaoxiao. "What nonsense." Yin Shoji kicked at the person in front. He then led Mu Xiaoxiao to sit at the center of the long sofa, which was the best spot. Twisting her hips, Hyuna strolled over and gave Yin Shoji a charming smile to entice him before turning over to Mu Xiaoxiao. "You're young Master G's new girlfriend, so you should be really awesome, huh? Sing a song and show everyone your prowess." Mu Xiaoxiao had a bad feeling about Hyuna, and it seemed like the latter was always scheming something against her. Her displeasure increased after she heard these words. She had even emphasized new girlfriend. Wasn't she hinting that Mu Xiaoxiao would one day become his ex then? Mu Xiaoxiao put on a poker face and elbowed Yin Shoji. "Blame it on him for being so fickle all the time." Yin Shoji shot a glare at her. Of course, he knew what Hyuna had implied. He looked at Hyuna with displeasure, and cocking a perfectly arched brow, he took Mu Xiaoxiao into his arms. The corner of his lip twitched seductively. "She's not my girlfriend." The entire crowd was stunned, especially Hyuna, who was astonished. So she wasn't young Master G's girlfriend. Then why does he treat her so? Yin Shoji smiled deviously and gave Mu Xiaoxiao a kiss on the cheek on a whim. "She's my wife," he said with a pampering look. These words shocked the crowd to the core. Even though there had been numerous women by young Master G's side, he had never addressed any one of them as wife. Snuggled against his embrace, Mu Xiaoxiao grinned. She was especially gleeful when she saw Hyuna's face turn liver-colored. Yin Shoji leaned towards her ear, their postures intimate. "Do you want to sing a song?" he asked in a sexy voice. He suddenly wanted to listen to her sing. Shooting a glare at Hyuna, Mu Xiaoxiao's rose-colored lips curled into a smile. "Sure, I'll sing a song for you, and in return, I want you to sing a solo piece too, dear." She even gave him a peck on the cheek afterward. An obsequious person hurried over with a remote sensibly for her to choose her song. To the crowd's surprise, Mu Xiaoxiao picked an English song. "Ahem ahem." She held the mic with an air of affectation, and acting bashful, she said, "I don't usually sing, so if it doesn't sound good, please bear with me." However, the crowd's jaws dropped once the song ended. It had been so well sung. Her English accent sounded like the original singer's too. Chapter 84, A Game of Kings and Slaves. In the middle of all the fun, Yin Shoji's phone rang. He held it up to see who was calling but hung up on the person without a word. Mu Xiaoxiao looked at him curiously. "Who called?" Yin Shoji didn't reply. The phone started ringing again not a few seconds later. "I'm going out to get a call," he said. He released her hand, which he had been holding, stood up, and left. The crowd took this chance to gather around Mu Xiaoxiao. "How did you meet young Master G? Are you really his wife? How are you really related?" Seeing that she looked affable, these people peppered her with questions bluntly. However, Mu Xiaoxiao only smiled mysteriously and replied, "If you want to know, then ask him yourself. Ask young Master G. Who would dare to do that?" Just then, a few rich scions came forward, making the crowd disperse as they surrounded Mu Xiaoxiao. "Hey babe, want to play a game?" a rich young master holding Hyuna asked. No one knew Mu Xiaoxiao's name because Yin Shoji hadn't introduced her. A charming hyena, who was nested into that sun's chest, said to Mew Xiao Xiao, "Are you afraid? Don't be scared, we're only playing a little game. It's harmless." Mew Xiao Xiao smiled. "It's only a game. What's there to be afraid of? Let's play." Hyena emerged from that young master's arms and sat beside Mew Xiao Xiao. "The game is simple. We're going to play poker. Whoever gets the biggest card will be the king, and whoever gets the smallest card will become the slave. The slave has to obey the orders of the king, and whatever the king wants the slave to do, he must do it." "What if the slave doesn't want to?" Mew Xiao Xiao asked. Just then, someone carried a whole lot of glasses over. Placing them in the middle of the table, he filled all the glasses to the brim. The young master beside Mew Xiao Xiao smiled deviously. "If you don't obey, then you'll have to drink a glass of beer," he said. Mew Xiao Xiao frowned. She regretted agreeing to play this game a little. She didn't like to drink and couldn't really hold her liquor. Internally, Hyena sneered. Externally, she put on a facade of amiability as she said, "Don't worry. The orders will be simple and won't really inconvenience you. How about playing a test round?" "Oh yeah, a test round." The rest whooped. After taking the poker cards out and shuffling them, they spread them onto the table. "Start picking your cards. Ladies first," said the rich young master beside Mew Xiao Xiao to her gentlemanly. Mew Xiao Xiao didn't see a problem with this. This game was all about luck anyway, and she thought that her luck wasn't too bad. With no notion of suspicion, she picked out a card. Everyone else picked out a card too and revealed their hands all at once. The largest card belonged to the young master who was holding Hyena, but the smallest one belonged to Hyena. Hyena pouted and shot a coquettish glare at that young master. "Give the order. Give the order." The surrounding crowd hollered. Hyena looked like a willing loser unafraid to do anything as she cast a sidelong glance at that young master. That young master reached out and pulled her in. Smiling suggestively, he commanded, "Then, give me a kiss." He made a kissy face. Hyena put on an air of shyness before leaning forward and kissing him. The both of them even started to French kiss. The crowd shrieked with titillation. Mew Xiao Xiao furrowed her brow in discomfort, her heart weirdly uneasy. These people were too wild, and she didn't like it. Nervous with worry, she looked at the door using the corner of her eyes. Who was Yin Shoji talking to on the phone, and why wasn't he back yet? Chapter 85, Being Plotted Against. All right, round 2. Shuffle the cards. Mew Xiao Xiao didn't want to play any longer but had no choice but to endure it and play on. After everyone else had picked a card, she did so too under the urging of the crowd. She took a casual look at her card and saw the 3 of diamonds. She froze. All right, lay down your cards." Everyone hollered. Mew Xiao Xiao sighed and revealed her hand. Her card was undoubtedly the smallest. However, she had never imagined that the king of this round would be Hyena. Hyena's lips curled up into a smile, and she looked at Mew Xiao Xiao with malicious intent. Mew Xiao Xiao's face was a little frozen. She felt that this woman was constantly out for her. With such a good chance now, why wasn't she quickly doing something? Hyena saw the uneasiness on Mew Xiao Xiao's face and was pleased. "Let's see how I mess with you, you slut." "All right, as king, I'll order you to." Before she could finish her sentence, Mew Xiao Xiao swooped up a glass in her hand first and downed it. Luckily, the glass wasn't the large kind. However, the way she downed it almost made her spout it out. She had to force it in and swallow it. "All right, I drank it." She turned the glass over to show them. Hyena's expression was a little dark, and she glared at Mew Xiao Xiao. The crowd whooped and clapped. No wonder she's young Master G's woman. What an impressive attitude. Then let the next round begin. Mew Xiao Xiao glanced askance at Hyena. Sure enough, the latter looked furious. She gloated with glee internally. "Trying to plot against me. I'm not giving you a chance, I'll stifle your efforts to death." The next round began. With her fighting spirit aroused, Mew Xiao Xiao really wanted to be king so that she could strike back at Hyena. However, this game was too reliant on luck. Mew Xiao Xiao wasn't king but was lucky enough to not be the slave either. She hadn't imagined that the unlucky one would be Hyena again, while the position of the king went to another rich young master. "Yuna, why is it you again? I'll not put you in a spot, so how about this, do a pole dance on stage, how about that?" The rich young master said with amusement. Hyena radiated shyness but still went up onto the stage. Grabbing onto the shoulders of a boy, she did a sexy little dance. The atmosphere in the room heated up. The boys whooped. Hyena swayed her hips as she strolled back wearing an embarrassed look on her face. She then exchanged a look with the person beside her. Mew Xiao Xiao was the slave in the next round. Mew Xiao Xiao suddenly realized that it was weird that although there were only 2 girls, her and Hyena, in the game, they were the ones who always lost. This was too coincidental. However, she wasn't a sore loser, but not wanting to be tricked into doing things, she had no choice but to drink. The crowd saw her drink again and was disappointed. However, no one dared to say anything because she was young Master G's woman. In the next few games, Mew Xiao Xiao was the one who lost more. Mew Xiao Xiao hiccuped on her 6th drink, her senses fuzzy. She shook her hand and said, "I can't take it. I can't drink anymore, I'm going to vomit." Beside her, Hyena looked on with a smile on her face. She exchanged a glance with the rich young master beside her, their eyes communicating a plot. If young Master G sees you like this, he will feel so sorry for you. But isn't it weird that he hasn't come back even after such a long time? How about I take you up to the room upstairs to rest? When young Master G is back, I'll tell him to go upstairs to look for you. Chapter 86 Get Away From Me. As Hyuna was talking, she reached her hand to hold on to Mu Xiaoxiao's arm, gesturing to take her up. Who are you? Mu Xiaoxiao looked confused at her, attempting to make out her face. Her delicate face moved closer, almost touching Hyuna's. Upon smelling Hyuna's perfume, she wrinkled her nose and pushed her away in disgust. You stink. Get away from me. Hyuna's face turned grim. This slut has the nerve to say that I stink. She felt a great urge to slap Mu Xiaoxiao in the face. But with so many onlookers, she couldn't do it. She had no choice but to maintain her forced smiles. It's me, Yuna. You're drunk. Let me take you up to rest, all right. Watching Mu Xiaoxiao's tipsy red face, which accentuated her allure, Hyuna grew more resentful. She thought about taking her into the empty room, where she could use the opportunity to deal her a few slaps. She was happy just thinking about it. Hyuna's smile appeared very natural. She then took great effort to support Mu Xiaoxiao. Initially, the other men had wanted to help. But seeing that Hyuna was putting in a lot of effort and that Mu Xiaoxiao was young Master G's woman, they dared not touch her, so no one came to help. Hyuna saw that Mu Xiaoxiao was not struggling and she wanted to take the chance to take her up. She had it all planned out. She would set up a man in the room. Then, she would let young Master G catch the adulterous couple on the bed. Haha, when that happens, we'll see if young Master G will still like to keep this little slut. Upon smelling the perfume on her body, Mu Xiaoxiao couldn't help but retch. I'm going to vomit. Hyuna's face turned pale. You'd better not vomit on me. She was so frightened that she threw Mu Xiaoxiao back onto the sofa. It was then that the door to the booth opened. Yin Shoji pushed the door and entered only to see that sight, and he made a severe expression. Hyuna, what do you think you're doing? He asked. Hyuna didn't think that he would be back so soon, and she couldn't care that her plan was foiled. She frantically apologized. I didn't do anything. Young Master G, you misunderstand. I saw that she was drunk and wanted to take her up to the room to rest and wait for you. I really didn't do anything. Drunk. Yin Shoji raised his eyebrows and walked up to take a look. Mu Xiaoxiao, that little wretch, was laying on the sofa, and her face was flushed. She's really drunk. How did she get drunk? He didn't recall that the wretch liked to drink. Could it be that she picked up the habit in America? But upon seeing the poker cards and the bottles of alcohol on the table, he understood. He looked around at the airs at the scene and coldly snorted. He walked over to Mu Xiaoxiao's side and pulled her up as his long arms supported her slender waist. Just as he was about to carry her, Mu Xiaoxiao suddenly struggled and threw herself onto him. Yin Shoji only wanted to prevent her from getting hurt. Unexpectedly, the two's lips came into contact, though it was only for a second. Mu Xiaoxiao then dug her head into his shoulders as if she had found her safe harbor. But at the same time, Yin Shoji was stunned. The sensation from the touch seemed to linger on his slender lips. It was a touch softer than pudding, and it was accompanied with the scent of a young woman. The other men witnessed such a rare sight and just stared blankly at the two. Yin Shoji coughed unnaturally and carried Mu Xiaoxiao. He said to the others, you guys continue playing. I'm taking off. As he said that, he carried Mu Xiaoxiao and left, leaving the crowd staring at each other, at a loss at what to do. Chapter 87, He hasn't kissed other girls. As the door closed, the onlookers started to gossip in soft whispers. Hey, did you see that just now? Young Master G seemed to have blushed. Did I see that right? You must have seen wrong. How could young Master G have blushed? He has lots of experience with women. How could a single touch of the lips make him blush? Is young Master G such an inexperienced man? Are you silly? But I really did see that. Or could I really have seen wrong? No, I'm right. They were talking right beside Hyuna. Hyuna's face was very gloomy. She stared at them and shouted, shut up, all of you. Don't talk about it, do you hear? You saw it incorrectly. You definitely did. Seeing the look on her that seemed as if she was threatening to gouge out their eyes if they didn't go along and claim that they saw nothing, the man got scared as he quickly nodded and kept quiet. In a fit of anger, Hyuna threw herself on the sofa and drank from a bottle of wine from the table. The rich young master who kissed her just a while ago sat by her side. His hands wantonly felt her thigh. Baby, are you angry? Haven't we followed your plan and punished her? Don't be angry. She was, after all, Yin Shoji's woman, and they didn't dare to go overboard. Hyuna was extremely displeased. Her eyes gleamed with great hatred under the bright, flickering lights. How would these people understand? They all believe that Yin Shoji has had many girlfriends and is definitely a seasoned man. However, only those that have dated Yin Shoji would know that Yin Shoji has never kissed any of them, let alone engage in any more intimate acts. Initially, Hyuna had thought that she was not attractive enough and she couldn't accept it as she had always thought herself to be attractive. It was only until she surveyed his past girlfriends that she found out that he had treated all those girls in the same way, never kissing any of them. And so, this had become her obsession. She madly desired to have Yin Shoji's kiss as if she would become his true love when she finally obtained it. Now, however, another woman had already touched Yin Shoji's lips right before her eyes. She was so madly jealous that she could kill. Ha Yun's eyes squinted dangerously. She wouldn't just let things go like this. As Yin Shoji was driving the car home, he would occasionally take a glance at Mu Xiaoxiao in the front passenger seat. He noticed that she was sleeping very soundly. In contrast, the accidental kiss had caused his heart to stir restlessly. It was only a second's touch, so it shouldn't count as a kiss. But he just could not control the thought of the sensation that seemed so faint yet so clear. Suddenly, a black car appeared in front of him, parking horizontally on the road. Yin Shoji frowned slightly and slowed down the car. Just as he was thinking about whether to reverse the car, a few men stepped out of the black car with weapons in their hands and walked towards him. Get out of the car. If you don't want to die, get out now, you hear. The bald-headed leader of the gang shouted as he stared ferociously at him, his hand swinging an iron club. Yin Shoji saw that they were gradually drawing near and was going to reverse the car to leave. But then another black car appeared from behind and blocked their path of retreat. His expression was imposing and grave. He undid the seatbelt and stepped outside of the car. Are there any problems? His handsome face showed no signs of fear, and his voice was steady. Chapter 88, Taking orders from someone. The bald head spat. His face had a knife scar, and his mouth was slanted to one side. He looked at Yin Shoji's sports car, his eyes filled with greed as he said rudely, since you're a young master from a rich family, you must be loaded, right? Splurge a little. How does 500,000 yuan sound? It should be peanuts to you, right? Yin Shoji had one hand in his pocket. His tall and erect body stood casually and aloof. His classiness made him look composed. He slowly walked towards the man and smiled, looking unfazed. 500,000 yuan. That's peanuts. I wouldn't pick it up if I found it. Hearing this, his eyes glimmered. So you agree then? Hurry and give us the money. I will accompany you. Before he could finish speaking, Yin Shoji delivered a kick to his stomach and the bald head fell back, kneeling in pain as he covered his stomach. Yin Shoji laughed coldly and glared at him. My money will not be yours even if I threw it in the garbage bin. You, get him. Beat him to death. The bald head quickly shouted. The other men raised their weapons and swarmed around. However, these hoodlums hadn't expected Yin Shoji to not simply be a playful hedonistic son with rich parents. His hidden skills were astonishing. In only a few minutes, he had easily taken down these men. Stepping on the bald guy's head with his limited edition skate shoes, Yin Shoji smiled pompously and said, This head is not bad. It's round enough to be a soccer ball. The bald head was scared witless as he cried and begged, Young master, I was wrong. Please have mercy. It was unintentional. It really was. I was only taking orders from someone. Taking orders. Yin Shoji frowned as he suddenly felt uneasy. At this moment, a cry suddenly came from his sports car. Not good. Xiaoxiao is in the car. He was startled. He knew that this was a scheme to lure him away from Mu Xiaoxiao, and he immediately rushed back. He happened to see a black silhouette escape from the side of the car and rushed to the car. The door to the front passenger seat was open, but Mu Xiaoxiao was nowhere to be seen. His heart stopped for a moment. Xiaoxiao, Yin Shoji's was pale in the face. Feeling utmost remorse, he cursed hatefully, FCK this. He had been too careless. How could he not have anticipated this? As he was about to give chase, he heard someone faintly call out, Gee, I'm here. Yin Shoji quivered. The sound came from the back of the car. He extended his head in and saw that Mu Xiaoxiao's small body was curled up at the back, and her eyes still looked drowsy, still intoxicated. Seeing that she was safe, he felt immense relief. When he thought that she may have met with a mishap, he had been frightened to death. Xiaoxiao, are you all right? How did you get to the back? He walked over to open the door to the back seat and pulled her out. Mu Xiaoxiao laid in his embrace, lazily leaning on his shoulders. In an indistinct voice, she said, I was scared, so I climbed to the back. It's fortunate that she had climbed back early, otherwise, if the men had used roofies on her, they would have gotten their way with her. Don't be afraid. It's okay now. Yin Shoji touched her head as he comforted her with his deep voice. My head hurts, I'm not going to drink, ever. Mu Xiaoxiao said as she frowned, looking gloomy. Yin Shoji thought about the shock previously and let out another sigh of relief. This silly wretch had really scared him to death. It had been a long time since he had felt such fear. Chapter 89, thinking of kissing her as he let her return to the front passenger seat, he couldn't help but pinch her cheeks and scold her, saying, We'll see if you will still dare to drink next time. You can't even hold your liquor. Why did you drink? You're such a fool. Boo-hoo, Mu Xiaoxiao grumbled. This sucks. Yin Shoji stroked lightly her forehead. Okay, we're going back home immediately. I'll get you some hangover medicine. You can sleep a while more, and it'll be fine. Mu Xiaoxiao was quiet. Her head leaned onto the back of the seat, still frowning and looking as if she was in pain. Yin Shoji couldn't help her. He fastened her seatbelt, sat back in his seat, and drove home. Back at home, he carried her up to the apartment. He put her on the bed and laid her down. As he was about to leave to buy some hangover medicine, she tugged at his clothes. Ji, don't leave, she said suddenly in a soft voice. He thought that she was still asleep, but he hadn't expected her to wake up just after getting into bed. I'm going to buy some hangover medicine and will be back quickly. You lay in bed and rest for a while, he explained in a relaxed voice, unlike his usual imposing manner. Mu Xiaoxiao shook her head and gripped tightly on his clothes. No, I don't want to be alone at home. As Yin Shoji listened to her, his eyes were becoming watery. He sighed and said, all right, I won't go. You're such a troublesome woman. Though he expressed his annoyance, he still sat on the bedside, letting her hold on to his hand. How much did you drink exactly? Yin Shoji then realized that her face was abnormally red. It wasn't from just drinking a few glasses. She seemed almost well cooked. Mu Xiaoxiao belched. Just a few glasses, I was still alright when I was drinking, and suddenly I got really giddy. Yin Shoji squinted as he recalled the bottles of liquor on the table. There must have been a couple of different liquors mixed together, and the after effects were especially strong. Those bastards. He knew that those people would usually go overboard in their games, so they might have gotten her completely drunk. He was fuming as he looked at her miserable state and considered the possibilities. Just watch how I'll deal with them. As Mu Xiaoxiao was talking, perhaps because of her dry mouth, she subconsciously licked her lips. It caught his attention as his gaze became fixated on her tender lips. It looked as cute as pudding. He couldn't help but remember the moment when their lips touched. The softness of the sensation, his heartbeat sped up abruptly, and his gaze was unable to leave her lips. Strangely, his body started to heat up. He pulled on his collar as he felt the uncomfortable heat. He undid the buttons on his shirt with one hand, revealing his sexy collarbone to ventilate the area. Gee, I'm not feeling good, this wretch was still oblivious. Letting out delicate sounds at this moment was as good as witchcraft, causing Yin Shoji to waver in his self-restraint. Yin Shoji frowned. What was wrong with him? His deep gaze once again fell upon Mu Xiaoxiao's lips. This time, he couldn't help but reach out and touch them with his hand. It was extremely soft. Her lips were as cute as a cherry. He could imagine the sweet taste of kissing them. He thought he was bewitched. Otherwise, why would he want to kiss her? Suddenly, he was surprised by this notion. He actually wanted to kiss Mu Xiaoxiao. Chapter 90, igniting a flame then forgetting it, Yin Shoji stared at her again with his deep, dark gaze. He nearly attempted to get close for a kiss but quickly restrained himself. He must be mad. Yin Shoji shook his head in frustration, attempting to drive away the strange impulses in his head. But Mu Xiaoxiao's occasional purrs made it hard for him not to be attracted. As he couldn't help staring at her, Yin Shoji pouted and mumbled, Wretch, you're not doing this on purpose, are you? Seducing him on purpose. It wasn't unusual for this wretch to act like this given her usually weird behavior. However, looking at her flushed face and her miserable state, it was unlikely that she was acting drunk. Gee, I'm hot, it's uncomfortable here. Mu Xiaoxiao twisted and turned to face Yin Shoji. Her hand was pressing on her chest. Yin Shoji saw her eyebrows furrowed together, her face red to the neck, and her hand was scratching her chest, leaving a red scar on the fair skin at her collarbone. He couldn't bear to watch any longer. If she kept doing that, her skin would break. I told you to let me get some hangover medicine. Once you take it, you'll feel much better, but you just won't listen, he reprimanded, his eyebrows raised as he looked at her face. Mu Xiaoxiao let out some whimpering noises as if she was grieving. Yin Shoji's heart became soft. He had never seen her in such a sorry state. Although he drank frequently and could hold his liquor well, when multiple liquors were mixed, especially if white wine was also added, the after effects would be torturous even for him. Where are you uncomfortable? He asked in a soft voice. Mu Xiaoxiao rubbed her chest. Here, she felt extreme discomfort at her chest, and it was as if it was burning. Yin Shoji could empathize with that feeling, and he sighed as he felt helpless. He pulled away at her hand, and placed his hand on her chest and rubbed the area. Here, is it better now? Mu Xiaoxiao looked slightly relieved and nodded, completely in a daze. Her body instinctively cuddled towards him. Initially, Yin Shoji had only the pure intention of helping her ease her discomfort. But as he rubbed, because she was moving around and her t-shirt's collar was messy, his gaze would inadvertently fall onto her delicate collarbone. The fair skin and the shape of the bone, tinted with pink from the effects of the alcohol, appeared particularly alluring. Located below the collarbone was naturally her bosom. Yin Shoji realized that the area he was rubbing had gotten hot, and his breath was getting heavier. Why did it feel like the room was getting hot? Mu Xiaoxiao let out a sigh, seeming to have improved from her previous state. She closed her eyes and slowly calmed down. As Yin Shoji watched her peaceful little face, he grew more restless instead. It was as if she had passed the unbearable heat to him. You're feeling comfortable. Just going to sleep like that, he said to her, feeling dissatisfied as he watched her. The innocent expression on her face bothered him. It was as if she had ignited a flame within him, yet she just fell asleep as if nothing had happened, leaving him alone with all kinds of strange impulses egging him on. Yin Shoji cast a devious smile and stood up suddenly. Bending his waist, his elegant face inched closer to her face. She slept soundly, and her warm breaths landed on his face. His dark eyes hid a slight shift in his desires. As he watched her pink lips passionately, he gradually leaned forward on impulse.